Maina and Benny claim that Maine really defeated Graham, but AKA can't believe them, seeing as they are tied up right now. They tell them not to joke around. They ask Dekka to cut their throats and leave. Just then, AKA gets an idea. She gives them a chance. If she makes it back from fighting the demon, they die. If they could die fighting the demon, they live. However, AKA wants to leave something for Mina. She gouges out Mina's left eye. Mana screams and squirms in pain. AKA then leaves them, seeing Mina in pain. Then he tries his best to get out of the ropes. He later helps Mina get out and suggests giving up. Benny suggests running away together, but Mana reminds him of Benny's question about living as his livestock. She tells him that to gain freedom, you need to pay a price. Mana shouts that she is ashamed of being the summoner of Jinkum. Many suggest treating her first, but Mana summons Jin Kim first. A blue light falls from the night sky, and Jinkum appears, licking a girl's skin. The girl slaps Jin Kim and calls Jin Kim a pervert. Jin Kim apologizes, but Emily complains that her body always smells like saliva. Jinkum claims that's the smell of happiness and runs away. Jin Kyung shouts Emily's name as she disappears on the horizon. Jinkum laments about being hated by his favorite anime character. Benny gets his attention, and Jin Kim notices Maina crying in pain. He says it's fine and mentions the demon first, but Jin Kyung worries. Maina apologizes for being useless and interfering with Jin Kim's life. Jinkum calmly tells her not to call herself useless because she is not. Mana then cries out loud. Jin Kyung thought about how to heal her and peels off the bandage on his feet. Jinkum tells Maina to stay still, but seeing the hair sticking to it, she screams and panics. Benny holds her down, and the bandage lights up. Her eyes are now better, but for some reason, she hates it. Meanwhile, Kaltovia destroys the villages in his path. People watch as the giant demon strides on the way to their village. Aika's team tries to attack Kaltovia's foot, but it is useless. Aga plans to use her magic knife. She orders the rest to evacuate the nearby villages. She then goes alone to attack Kaltovia. Her assistant realizes that AK doesn't want the same thing to happen again in her life. Would her comrades die first? IGA worries that her knife didn't recharge enough mana, but she still activates the knife's shell calm. A long blade of flame appears, and she shoots it at Kaltovia's foot. It hits, but it was useless. However, Kaltovia notices and looks down on her. AK tries to attack again, but the mana dissipates. Kaltovia prepares to attack, and Aika accepts her bitter fate. Just as Kaltovia started swinging his sword, Jin Kim arrived, looking for the demon. Jin Kyung gets surprised to see an eye-patch character and calls her super cool, while Kaltovia attacks behind him. Kaltovia strikes his sword on the ground, and AK is confused about why she's still alive. She looks up and sees Jin Kyung flying and then falling to the ground. She can't believe that a person received Kaltovia's attack. Maina and Benny arrive, and AK is surprised to see her healed. Mana tells her to trust them first, but Benny claims that Jin Kyung is already in a better place. Benny cries while thanking Jin Kim for his sacrifice. Maina claims his spirit won't die and will just return to its original world. Just then, Jin Kim wakes up and complains about how it hurts to receive the attack. AK gets surprised, and Maina introduces Jin Kim as the one who defeated Graham. Maina probably talks about Jin Kyung, but he pinches her cheeks, exclaiming that he is hurt. Benny exclaims that Kaltovia is attacking again. Jin Kyung tells everyone to get back and brings out an object from his pocket. Kaltovia attacks him, and Jin Kim is sent flying. Jin Kim fights back and turns on his laser pointer. The laser pierces through Kaltovia's body and reaches another planet, destroying it. Jin Kim realizes he was wounded and is impressed that Kaltovia managed to dodge the attack. He tries to look for a better item, but Kaltovia is already attacking him. He defends using his dad's lighter, which turned into a fire sword. With willpower, he manages to fend off Kaltovia's blade and counters using the fire sword. He slashes it forward, but Kaltovia fends off his fire sword. Kaltovia attacks again, but the latter doesn't have fuel anymore. Jin Kim receives the attack, and he is sent flying through the mountains. Kaltovia randomly slashes the same area where Jin Kim flew. AKA and Benny shout that they need to get away, but Maina senses that there is something wrong. Jin Kyung wakes up, and Maina finds him. He confesses that he has already used up all his items. Seeing that he won't die, he knows he has some power, but he can't bring it out. Jin Kyung apologizes to Maina. Just then, Kaltovia prepares his lance, which can put the whole area on fire. Meanwhile, Jin Kong apologizes and claims that his real self is useless. Mana shouts and claims that Jin Kim is an amazing person. She then plans to prove that she calls out Aika and asks for her shell gun. AKA claims he'll be dead and that she will never trust the king's puppets. Mana shouts it just like their mercenary group. She is also trying to protect someone. AKA can't say no and throws her a shell gun. Mana gives it to Jin Kim and claims that he can use the shell gun using the mana from his world. AKA shouts at them to stop having magic lessons because Kaltovia has just taken out his lance and activated his magic. Mana tells Jin Kyung to use incantation concentration, and then Mana, using the shell gun, needs to imagine using the mana of his world and use his own magic. Kaltovia attacks with his flame lance. Jin Kyung grabs the shell gun while shouting that he also wanted a real fantasy weapon. He uses the knife to block Kaltovia's attack. He thrusts an attack forward, and Kaltovia's lance starts breaking apart. The attack pierces Kaltovia as well, causing the demon to explode. Jin Kyung knows he is a mess in his world, but he can be someone in this fantasy world. The next day, Jin Kim wakes up from a stiff sleep. He goes outside and sees people gathering the dead. He thought fantasy worlds were fun based on the anime he watched. However, monster attacks or wars can cause people's deaths, and he also realizes that having no internet is indeed scary. Meanwhile, AKA apologizes to Maina. She can trust Maina but not the king because he might also be trying to take advantage of her. Maina also realized it, and that's why she wants to check the north later. AKA gives them money and apologizes for everything. AKA and her assistant also mention the bards who are the main source of news regarding the king's bad reputation. Aika then gives the shell gun to Jin Kim and asks him to take care of Maina. However, he starts acting cool. They later go their separate ways. Afterward, Jin Kyung gets mad that AKA was the one to hurt Maina. Maina asks Jin Kyung to understand because Aika is just someone who tries to protect others. She further tells them that she realized a lot of things thanks to Baka, like making your own choices and what responsibility means. Meanwhile, Alara meets her father. Her father then discusses with another nobleman about Maina's party defeating Gria. The other nobleman then mentions a rumor from the bards that Kaltovia appeared and got destroyed. The two women and the other nobleman suggest doing something when Mana's party reaches the port city. In a forest, a bard troupe discusses being hired to target someone. They are tasked with targeting Mana's party because they are dangerous, according to their higher-ups. The leader asks who is going to do it. Lua, the feminine-looking bard in the group, accepts the task and goes home. Lua's mother hits Lua for wasting her time seeing nonsense. She compares Lua to their neighbors. The crying Lua shuts the door and runs away. Lua swears to succeed in the task and come back proudly. Meanwhile, Maina and Benny struggle to pass through the forest. Jin Kyung doesn't feel tired and assumes that his body now understands how to use mana. Benny asks if Jin Kyung has seen the sea. Jin Kyung then finds out that the two teens haven't seen the sea yet. He starts to describe it, but he is actually only repeating what he has heard on TV and the internet. They then reach the sea, but Jin Kyung is confused seeing a different sea than he knows. Suddenly, they hear a roar and assume that it is a demon. They run in its direction. Meanwhile, Lua is being attacked by a demon. Lua lies down regretting accepting the mission. Just then, Jin Kyung roars, complaining at the demon for attacking a girl, and leaps forward. Everyone looks at him, not reaching for the shell gun. Mana screams at him for putting it there. Jin Kim asks for a timeout, but the monster sends him flying with one hit. Lua wonders who that loser was. The demon roars, and Lua runs away from it. Jin Kyung recites his embarrassing incantations and slashes the demon in half, including the mountain from afar. The demon explodes, and Lua recognizes them as the targets of the task. Jin Kim asks if the beautiful flower is fine. Lua claims that he is fine. Everyone falls silent for a while, and Lua asks if something is wrong. Jin Kim asks why Lua's voice is so deep, and Lua claims that it is normal for a guy. They fall into silence once again. Later, they introduce each other, and Lua finds out that they are going to the port city. Lua offers to take them to the Bard's Hall so they can repay them for saving him. Maina is happy, but Jin Kyung lets out a sad sigh. He asks Lua why his hair is long. Lua explains that his troop tells him to do so. Lua apologizes, but Jin Kyung explains that in his world, who cares if they're a man or a woman, they just need to taste good. The others react differently, and Lua concludes that Jin Kyung is dangerous after all. They arrive at the Bard's Hall, but it was recently destroyed by a demon. Lua claims there's a basement, and Maina offers to help with cleaning. Benny tells Maina to look for a boat first, or else they will travel by land. The three then leave, and Lua brings out something. Lua is tasked with making the targets sleep, and people will come to finish the job. It is their chance to make real money. Lua wonders if the potion will work on the spirit, but later then tells Louis something. Mana's party sees the destroyed village. They think Kaltovia is the cause, knowing that the demon is tall and can cross the waters. Maina claims there were no demon attacks from the waters because the port city is protected by the goddess of the sea, Aya. Jin Kyung dismisses that, claiming there is no god, and the church is scamming people by lying to them. They arrive at the docks and see the boats destroyed. They see a light and approach it. They see someone repairing an intact boat. The old man doesn't respond to them, and someone appears to tell them that the old man doesn't talk. Benny tells the man that they are looking for a boat. The man claims that the old man has fixed it a bit, but there is another problem. The sea has low tide, and the boat can't get out. The man concludes that the goddess of the sea has forsaken them. Later, Mana's party returns to the Bard's Hall, and Lua welcomes them into the underground hall. The warm fire is burning, and meals are being prepared. Jin Kyung disgustingly looks at Lua and tells him to cover himself. Lua apologizes and explains that it is his performance attire. Mana thanks Lua for the meal, and he walks away to get some drinks as the party talks about their next plans. Louis pours the sleeping potion into their drinks. Lua comes and accidentally mentions the potion instead of tea. He cries, knowing he failed. However, the three receive the drinks. Maina then asks Lua about the tides. Lua mentions a legend about Aya in the bard's songs. Aya was originally from the demon's side. When people learned she loved songs, bards gathered and created the most beautiful song in the world as a tribute to her. Aya gives them a blessing, making the tide high at night to protect people from demons, and low during the day to help fishermen. Jin Kyung tells them not to believe that. Louis exclaims that Aya selects the bard with the most beautiful voice. Jin Kyung says it is not Lua, and Lua cries. Louis cries that he shared everything with the three, and they are not drinking their drinks yet. Just then, Jin Kim exclaims that he doesn't want to hear superstitions. Instead, he wants to know what Lua is up to. They need to figure out Lua's plans. Will they be able to reach the north at this rate? If you want another part of the recap of this manhwa, comment below and make sure to like this video. Subscribe for more content like this, and see you next time.